We'll start to hear these now. How do you define sanity? Hannah, feed me comments as they come in. Thank you. When they come, yes. Angela. So Angela defines it in terms of like reasonableness, but that can change based on kind of, sometimes society determines what sanity is, and maybe that may not be exactly what it is. It can be a social construct. How do you define sanity? We have balance, working towards loving the Lord with all my heart and mind and soul. And then what was this last one? Stability, and then peace. What else? How do you define sanity? How do you define sanity? I'll wait, I promise. I'm so comfortable with awkward silence. Social contract, Tyler says. I like social contract, though, too, because that kind of suggests that if society defines sanity a certain way, we all kind of have to enter into agreement with that idea if we're going to live that way. Sometimes we enter into agreement with society and how we live. We don't like sign a contract, but our behaviors show that we've entered into an agreement with society and culture. Anything else, Tyler, you were going to say? What's insane to one person can be totally different to another. Someone online? To think an irrational way. In a rational way. Gotcha. I was like, wouldn't that be insanity, maybe? Josh, will you do me a favor? There are 2 books sitting back by the computer. Would you mind bringing them up to me? I appreciate it. Anybody else? We'll give you another second to chime in. How do you define sanity? Anyone else? I think so. Maybe not. Say it again, Hannah. That's it, Josh. Because of the influences we experience on a daily basis, it's hard to know the true definition. Yeah. Who determines what sanity is? Yeah, the courts sometimes, yeah. Yeah, that's true. So there's only one way, like in a hospital room, that it can be ruled that you aren't allowed to make decisions for yourself aside from a doctor. So like a doctor can rule that you don't have capacity, at which case what's called your living. I'm looking at an attorney in the back, watching her eyes. A doctor can determine that you don't have capacity. You're not able to make a decision for yourself. But there's one other category, which a judge can rule that you're not competent. You don't have the kind of the mental faculties. So that is true. Courts decide, certainly. Or if you're innocent by, insanity or whatever. Here's why I asked about sanity and not insanity. If I would have started with insanity, I might be wrong. We would have gone with a lot of stigma words. But now if you just define insanity by some of the reverses of what people said. Notice how some people talked about sanity in terms of balance. Insanity is perhaps some sort of imbalance. Or peace. Insanity is a lack of it. Or perhaps not a certain amount of it. Somebody describes sanity as like learning how to love the Lord God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. right? We all talked about, like, there are a few answers about, like, the definition depends, right? What might be sane to one person may be insane to another, right? Here's why I'm bringing this up. I'm going to be using the word insanity today, much from the wisdom of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'm going to show you in a minute how the way that they describe insanity, when I first read it in the big book, I was like, whoa, that doesn't seem like insanity to me the way I've heard it. But you're going to see how, for their experience, describing their behavior as a kind of insanity was step one of their liberation. Describing some of their behaviors and patterns as insanity is what started them on the path to healing. They realized that it was kind of a way of admitting defeat, hopelessness on their own. I'll read a story. There's a story of a guy named Jim in here. Again, this is from the big book, Alcoholics Anonymous. Story of a guy named Jim who went back and forth. He really fought his alcoholism with all of his will, all of his strength. And he had a period where he was sober for a long time. And one day he was just out doing some stuff, and he finds himself at a restaurant. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he's got a glass of milk with his lunch. And he's like, wait a minute. If I have a bit of whiskey in my milk, it can't be that bad. It's not the same. So he got one whiskey, poured it in his milk, drank that. And then another, and then another, and another, and another, and another. And here's how they ended up describing that experience. This is in, I believe it's page 27, again, of what's called the Big Book. I might be wrong. Sorry. Shoot. I have it in my notes in the back, and now, of course, I can't find it. 37, not 27. Listen to this. Thus started one more journey to the asylum for Jim. Here was the threat of commitment, the loss of family and position, to say nothing of that intense mental and physical suffering which drinking always caused him. He had much knowledge about himself as an alcoholic. Yet, listen to this. All of the reasons for not drinking were easily pushed aside in favor of the foolish idea that he could take whiskey if only he mixed it with milk. Here it is. Whatever the precise definition of the word may be, we call this, the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous, we call this plain insanity. Now, before you heard that story, would you describe Jim's actions as insane? Putting whiskey in his milk. You'd call it like weird or maybe off base, right? But they realized that especially their desire for that first drink a lot of times had insane kind of patterning to it. You may think this is an extreme case. To us, it is not far-fetched, for this kind of thinking has been characteristic of every single one of us. We have sometimes reacted more than Jim did upon the consequences. But there is always the curious mental phenomenon that, parallel with our sound reasoning, there inevitably ran some insanely trivial excuse for taking the first drink. Our sound reasoning failed to hold us in check. The insane idea won out. Next day, we would ask ourselves in all earnestness and sincerity, how could it have happened? In some circumstances, we then have gone out deliberately to get drunk, feeling ourselves justified by nervousness, anger, worry, depression, jealousy, or the like. Now, you might be saying to yourself, thank God I'm not an alcoholic. Or maybe you are an alcoholic out there. Maybe you're an addict. But I promise you that if we step back and looked at our lives, Every single one of us have behaviors, have patterns, have rhythms in our lives that if we were to step back, look just like an alcoholic, just not with alcohol. Money. Hello, Ross. Ambition, achievement, seeking the approval of others. I am insane when it comes to that. Again, I'm not using that word with the stigmas in mind. I mean it for me seriously. I can't control sometimes my desire to be liked by others. I'll be fine for a time, grounded for a time, and then I'll start putting whiskey in my milk. For you, it may not be alcohol. Maybe it is. Maybe it's your addiction. Maybe it's food. Maybe it's greed. My dad just raised his hand for food. For some people, their relationship with food has risen to a level of insanity. It's what we use to make ourselves feel a piece of sanity that has nothing to do with the sanity at all. We get to the right feelings the wrong way and end up right where we started. Here's the thing. I'm not defining sanity, as some of people did today, as the absence of insanity. That's not what we're doing today. I'm not describing insanity as the opposite of sanity. Here's how I might add my definition of sanity to the mix. For me, sanity is the presence of Christ, His healing and His power in the midst of our insanity. I believe that sanity, when I think about what has started to make me well in my life, what has started to fix my addiction to achievement, to ambition, to people-pleasing, I had a nervous breakdown, as I've described many times, in 2011. The thing that started to bring me to sanity, that started to restore my sense of inner peace in my body and mind and spirit, was a new awareness that the only thing that was going to get me well was the presence of Christ, my higher power, in the midst of my insanity. Newsflash, whatever your insanity is, it's not going away. It will be with you for the rest of your life. My ego is going to be with me every day for the rest of my life. Whatever your insanity is, it's going to be with you until you take your last breath. It was for Paul. Paul said, I got this thorn in my side, his insanity, with him for the rest of his life. Here's the difference for Paul, and it's making the difference for me. Christ's presence and my awareness of it in the midst of my insanity. There is my sanity right there. My growing awareness. I want to read you a story in the Bible that you're going to be like, that doesn't look like insanity to me. That doesn't look like insanity at all. But remember, we just all defined it, right? Insanity is different to different people. If I said to you to start this conversation, listen, I'm insane, you would laugh. And when I describe my ego, my ambition, my lust for achievement to make myself well, this burning desire I have for it, you would still go, well, yeah, but that's kind of a vice, but it's not insanity. I know my own brain. I know what my first desire comes, like sometimes my people-pleasing, itch is insane. I'm going to read a story in the Bible that you're going to go, that's not insanity. Well, just wait. Comes from the life of Paul. I'm going to read the first few verses, pause, and see if you think it's insanity, all right? Now that you've learned, you're going to go, well, yes, of course it is. This is in Acts of the Apostles, chapter 9. This is the story of the birth of the church after Jesus left the earth. As I'm looking this up, just kind of think in your head and your heart, what's your insanity? What's your version of the whiskey and the milk? What is it? What's your insanity? What's the part of your life that's become unmanageable? That's step one of Alcoholics Anonymous. Like, we admitted that our lives had become unmanageable. I already told you, for me, I've been working these steps as we started this series. I realized that for me, when it comes to my desire for people-pleasing, achievement, ambition, it's made my life unmanageable because it threatens my capacity to do the better and higher things I'm made to do, to be a good husband, to be a good father. Sometimes out of my insanity, I will choose to serve the needs of a stranger at the expense of my family. What else is that but plain insanity? Listen to this version of insanity. Meanwhile, Acts chapter 9, Saul was still breathing out murderous threats against the Lord's disciples. He went to the high priest, asked him for letters to the synagogues in Damascus, so that if he found any there who belonged to the way, this was the nickname for Jesus' upstart movement, whether men or women, he might take them as prisoners in Jerusalem. So, does that sound like insanity to you? Sounds mean, right? Sounds mean. Sounds like he's got an anger problem, maybe. It's weird because he's threatened by, think about who he's threatened by. Jesus' followers were mostly poor folks, uneducated folks, who had no position or power in society. And he's like, we got to find them all and put them in jail. What? What are they going to do to you, Paul? It's weird, it's mean, but maybe it doesn't sound like insanity until if you jump over to that letter we read at the beginning, Philippians. In Philippians chapter 3, Paul admits something to everyone. He admits that what he loved in his life was similar to the things I loved in my life. He wanted to be first at everything. It was the driving passion of his heart. It was the driving force of his life. He talks about it in Philippians chapter 3. He says, when it comes to the law, the first 5 books of the Bible, like, I'm a Pharisee. I'm the best of the best. Education, I was educated in Tarsus. Like, I'm an educated, smart, ambitious dude. I'm the best of the best. And he says, when it comes to harassing the church, I was first. That's the whiskey in Paul's milk. It wasn't about seeing Christians as threats. He wanted to get approval from the people in his church, his religion. Like, do you guys see this? I'm running around town throwing all those Christians in jail. What do you think? That's what got him up in the morning. I want to be like religious VIP status. I want to be the best of the best, even if it means I have to get that golden star by throwing poor, uneducated followers of this carpenter Jesus guy in jail. That's how I'm going to get my gold star. And then this happened. Remember what I said sanity is? It's Christ's healing presence in the midst of your insanity. 9:3, as he neared Damascus on his journey, suddenly a light from heaven flashed around him. He fell to the ground and heard a voice say to him, Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me? Saul asked, who are you, Lord? I am Jesus whom you are persecuting, he replied. Now get up and go into the city, and you will be told what you must do. What would you do? Let's hear it. What would you do if that happened to you? Hannah and Tyler, you're on the way home today in your car, and all of a sudden you get a blinding light saying, Hannah and Tyler, and Christ says something to you about your insanity. Hannah and Tyler, why are you fill in the blank? Did you guys know you were going to get singled out today? I love you. You know that? Or Charlie and Sue, what if you're on the way home? The Lord brilliant light appears in your life and says something about Charlie and Sue, why are you fill in the blank? John and Sandra, you're walking about. Shows up. Why are you doing this? Josh, Chris, Alicia. Hey, Bo. My wife's going, don't talk to them. They're quiet right now. What would you do? You would change your life, right? Man, if only Jesus would show up like that to me in my insanity, I would change my course. I'd be different. I'd probably go to the hospital, and then you would get ruled incompetent by a judge. Hannah would have to make decisions for your life then. If Christ would just show up to me like that, man, I would change my course. Here's the thing. Has Christ not shown up to you and the people around you? Has Christ not shown up to you in the sunrise today and the very light coming through these stained glass windows, or the light coming into the window wherever you are? As Alcoholics Anonymous says, and here, either God, as I said it last week, either God is everything or God is nothing. Either God is everything or God is nothing. We live our lives in the illusion that God is something. And it keeps us in the great illusion. Either God is everything. Either God is the reason there's sunlight coming through the windows. God is the reason you have breath in your lungs. And either all the people who saw Jesus face to face and said, that is the light of creation come to earth in the flesh with us. Either God is everything or God is nothing. I want to tell you that maybe it's that insanity that's causing you to miss out on the fact that God has appeared to you on the road with blinding light. To say, will you realize that you need a higher power than yourself to restore you to sanity? That's step 2 of Alcoholics Anonymous. We believe that a higher power, a power greater than ourselves, could restore our sanity. First step, admitting defeat. Second step, realizing that a power greater than you is going to restore you to sanity. I wanted to say all that before I read the rest of Paul's story, because you're going to read and go, well, of course he responds the way he does. Who wouldn't? Every day Christ shows up to us and we're like, hey, it's good to see you. I like what you're doing, but listen, I got some stuff I got to do. It means a lot to me. Can I take a rain check? I'll meet you tomorrow morning for coffee. Good? You know? We think if God showed up in our lives, we would definitely respond. The Bible's full of people, the Bible's full of people who hear God showing up and go, oh, hi, no thanks. Jonah, right? Jonah's, oh, hi, God. Hey, I want you to go to the Ninevites, your enemies, and tell them about me. Oh, yeah, all right, I'll see you later, no thanks. And runs away, right? Bible's full of people. Moses, when God appears to him in the burning bush, Moses, I want you to go free my people. Have you seen my speaking abilities? I don't think I'm the guy. Happens throughout the Bible. All like sheep have gone astray. You think, man, if God showed up to me like that, I would change my life. I would let God restore my sanity. I would give my life over to this higher power Christ, and man, I would start living. I don't know if that's true. It hasn't been true for me. Christ shows up to me all the time, and I'm like, oh man, it's good to see you again. But listen, I got some stuff I got to do. But listen to what happens. My wife rightly pointed out to me yesterday, this is why you should read the Bible with other people. I'd missed out on how there is a guy in this story who's wickedly sane, not insane, and you miss out on him because he's a minor character. But we talked about that on January 6th, I believe it was. How in God's story, the minor characters are the main characters. Listen to this. Jesus says, I am Jesus whom you're persecuting. Now get up and go into the city, and you will be told what you must do. The men traveling with Saul stood there speechless. They heard the sound but did not see anyone. Saul got up from the ground, but when he opened his eyes, he could see nothing. So they led him by the hand into Damascus. For 3 days he was blind and did not eat or drink anything. I was in a meeting, one of our recovery church meetings on Wednesday night. There was a guy telling his story. You're never going to know his name. You're never going to know who he is, so don't try to figure it out, all right? There's a guy telling his story. It was months ago. And he was kind of like, it's not gone. I've had some setbacks. It's been all right. And there was a guy who had 14, 15 years of sobriety, and he looked at him, and this is why we're doing this series, because the wisdom that comes out of these guys' mouths. He looks at him, he goes, "Hey man, it's already become unmanageable." Like reflected a mirror back to him, like you haven't done step one yet. You're trying to tell yourself, like, yeah, I've had some bad times, but like, I'm still managing it. It's not too bad. I've had some good streaks. Hello? You guys have seen it. That's how we stay in insanity. We go, yeah, okay, I've had some losses, but I mean, if I really show up and give it my best effort, I'm going to win. Step one says, no, you are defeated. You're defeated. And as I said week 1 of this series, the weird thing is when we admit that we're defeated, we find we are not defeated. It's a weird thing. When we say, like, I'm powerless with this thing. I'm powerless with this life. I'm hopeless without Christ. The minute we do that, we go, oh, there you are. Paul, in this moment, could be blinded and go, I'm really not blind. I got something in my eye. I've been here before. I have allergies. What about you? There could be something right now with which you are blind and you're going, but I'm not really. Christ has shown up, blinded you to give you a chance. Paul responds, though. In Damascus, here's that minor character who is awake, who is sane, who is helping others. In Damascus, there was a disciple named Ananias. The Lord called him in a vision. Ananias, yes, Lord, he answered. The Lord told him, go to the house of Judas on Straight Street and ask for a man from Tarsus named Saul, for he is praying. In a vision, he has seen a man named Ananias come and place his hands on him to restore his sight. Lord, I've heard many reports about this dude and all the harm he has done to your holy people in Jerusalem, and he has come here with authority from the chief priest to arrest all who call on your name. You mean that guy? You want me to go help that guy? But the Lord said to Ananias, go. This man is my chosen instrument to proclaim my name to the Gentiles and their kings and to the people of Israel. I will show him how much he must suffer for my name. If you want to wake up from the great illusion, realize that when you wake up, everything doesn't get better. There's pain in the waking up. Watch it here. When Paul starts to wake up from his great illusion, people aren't like, oh, hooray! Paul is changing his life. First of all, you got Ananias going, isn't that dude an evil person? Now listen to the rest. Ananias went to the house, entered it, placing his hands on Saul. He said, Brother Saul. He calls his enemy Brother Saul. That's what it looks like when you're awake. The Lord Jesus, who appeared to you on the road as you were coming here, has sent me so that you may see again and be filled with the Holy Spirit. You sitting here today, you out there, would you not like to see again and be filled with the Holy Spirit? Immediately, something like scales fell from Saul's eyes, and he could see again. He got up and was baptized, and after taking some food, he regained his strength. Would you not like to regain your strength? He spent several days with the disciples in Damascus. At once, he began to preach in the synagogues that Jesus is the Son of God. All those who heard him were astonished and asked, beware, when you change your heart and life, when you admit defeat and give your life over to a power greater than yourself, people aren't going to come around you with fanfare. Isn't he the one who raised havoc in Jerusalem among those who call on this name? And hasn't he come here to take them as prisoners to the chief priests? Yet Saul grew more and more powerful and baffled the Jews living in Damascus by proving that Jesus is the Messiah. What did I say? Oh, wait. When you change your heart and life, not everyone's going to be rallying around you with fanfare. Listen what happens to Paul. After many days had gone by, there was a conspiracy among the Jews to kill him. Sounds like a good time, huh? Changing your heart and life for Jesus is a real good time. But Saul learned their prayer. Day and night, they kept close watch on the city gates in order to kill him. So, that's the end of that story, sort of. It's actually the beginning of the entire story of Christianity. Saul, who became Paul, starts traveling the entire world to tell people about Jesus, who gave him his sight, who woke him from the dead, a power greater than himself. Paul set the world on fire by the power of the Holy Spirit. He would say in Philippians chapter 3, when he was lining up all of his achievements, he says, I now consider all those things sewer trash compared to the higher value of knowing Jesus. Now my life is dedicated to being one with him, even if I might have the privilege of sharing in his suffering. Yes, even the suffering of his death. That's what waking up sounds like. What about you? I'll leave you with that today. What of your insanity? What about that pattern of your life that's become unmanageable? The thing with which you're powerless, but you've not yet admitted it. Maybe it's your faith. Maybe it's just that you're lost in faith. You're trying to find all the answers. You're having all this resistance. You're having all this defiance in your spirit. The big book talks about moving from defiance to reliance. We all have that in our spirits. Even then, we don't have to get Christ all at once. We simply have to say, like, hey, I'm powerless. I need help, and I'm turning my life over to you, my higher power. This week, I hope that you can do that. In your prayers, in your journaling, in your conversations with the people you live with, work with, hang out with, that you can admit, like, the pieces of your life where you're defeated. And you can also confess, believe that I need a power greater than myself if I'm going to be restored to the person that I'm designed and destined to be. We're going to keep going with this journey of Jesus in the 12 steps. Going forward in this series, like I've told you, we're going to have stories from people who are in recovery, who have worked these steps, because their wisdom is much greater than mine. So be looking forward to that. John, I'm going to ask you to repeat that song, to play it again before we go today. Do you mind doing that? Yeah, thanks. As we get out of here today, listen to the words of the chorus, and it'll give you space to think about, like, there's a line that says, I know I'm in reach. I just want something beautiful. That's all that's required with Jesus, is willingness to keep going. So hear this song from John.